Hello again. I'm going to do conic graphs today. I walked into a pre-cal class to substitute for a teacher for a few minutes, and the kids were struggling with conic sections. It reminded me that I have not done a conic sections video yet, so I'm going to try to keep these shorter to try to do more than one a week. You can now find us on YouTube, TeacherTube, and Twitter. CMath Run on each one of those accounts. Like I said, we're going to go into the Conicgrapher, which is icon number 9. Right away, as a teaching tool, I can use a Conicgrapher to teach the difference between hyperbolas and ellipses. Notice the minus and the plus. Also, I can stress right here without even going into it. Which way does it open? Opens in the x direction. X is the positive minus the y. If y is a positive, opens in the y. There's my ellipse. General form of a circle. Again, teaching moment. X squared and y squared are both a. The different forms of a parabola. Vertex form, general form, opening in x, opening in y. I'm going to start with the hyperbola because that's the one that kids were struggling with when I walked in. So let's see. Take a look at that. I'm currently in rectangular mode. Notice the different modes. If I press polar, I can do polar or parametric. I want to stick to rectangular mode for today. We'll do some of those later on. Anyway, I was at an ellipse. We'll go with, a hyperbola. Hyperbola that opens in the x direction. Just to show you, I am in the initial viewing window, not the standard. The initial viewing window will let my ellipses look like ellipses and hyperbolas look like hyperbolas. They don't look distorted. What I do at the beginning of this unit is to show the modify. I'm going to make my a and b different. Also notice that a is a squared when I put it in, and b is b squared, so those are going to be slightly different, but a and b are the values that I want. It also gives me some constraints. A has to be bigger than 0, b has to be bigger than 0. H and k don't have any. I have the modify, so I'm going to go ahead and modify. If you remember from earlier, the modify allows me to use the left and right arrow keys to increase a value. Notice there's a slight yellow that has a previous, so what happened as I increased A? It moved further out. Let's do it again. Again, this is a great time to conjecture with the kids, with the students, and see what they notice. What happens as I move in closer and closer? That value can never be 0 because it's a dividing by 0. And all I'm doing is pressing the left and right arrow keys. If I wanted to change the B, let's see what happens when I change B. Make B 3. Make B 4. Now the hyperbola is getting wider. It's opening up wider. Let's go back. I'm going to go back to 3 and a 2. H and K. Again, I'm going to move H. How does H affect it? Looks like the whole thing shifted. Now I'm going to shift it back the other way. K, I'll do the same thing. As you all probably already know, K is going to shift it up or down. And I can always change this step if I wanted to increase it by more than 1. Once I have a graph I like, I'll press exit. That's going to lock in the values that were the last ones in there, so that now I can do some graphically solving. If you remember that from some of the earlier videos, I can now look at the foci. I have a nice dotted line for the x and y coordinates. I press execute. I will lock it in. I'll tag over with the over key. It gives me the second one. Execute. Again, it lets me talk about those different values. How did those different values come about? I'll hit G-solve again. This time I want to go with the asymptotes. Asymptotes are very important in this unit. It gives me the slope of those asymptotes. Let's see what else I've got. I go back to G-solve. I've got the vertex, or the vertices. Shows me the vertices. Again, I'm pressing execute to lock the vertices in. Go into G-solve. Let's see what else we have on the over. I can find the center. which is a great point of interest for students because that is the intersection of the vertices. How far over did I go in the x direction? How far over did I go in the y direction? X direction has to do with A, Y direction has to do with B. That's where this slope is coming from. And again, it's a great visual. Kids really see what each one of the variables does. And the way I teach these is to show the visual aspect of it. So I do all of these things on the overhead or now on this prism. This is a feature that is not unique to the prism. If you've got a Casio 9860, it does this as well. In fact, right after this one, I may do a 9860, maybe even a 9750 demo, just to show you that these calculators all work exactly the same. Let me hit exit. I will exit again. Let's take a look at an ellipse, keeping those same values. I'm just going to go ahead and draw. Explain to the students now, notice this is a plus. The only difference between these two functions was an addition sign. Again, I can show the center. The center should have been the same. I can show the foci. There's one over, there's the other. Again, all these values are based on A, B, H, and K, mostly A and B. Y-intercepts, I could also find eccentricity. If you're in a more advanced class, or if you're at that point right now, I know at our school we're doing, pre-cal is doing conics right now. So X and Y intercepts. Let's go to the parabola. We'll go to a parabola that opens in the Y direction. That one tends to give students more trouble. And we'll go with it in vertex form. Again, A cannot be 0. It's a great discussion as to why can't A be 0. Increase A, making it thinner, making it wider. Notice what happens. I try to go to A equals 0, and I couldn't do it. So once again, I like that one, so I'll lock that in. Go to my G-solve and find out what I can find out about each one of these. I can find out the vertex. Exit. Let me go ahead and redraw that. I hit exit one too many times there. So I'll G-solve again. The length, L is 1. It's the focal length, also known as the lattice rectum, which causes some chuckles in the audience, depending on which book you use and how you teach it. The directrix, F3, there it is. Compare that with the focus. What's the relationship between the focus and the directrix? Another great point of interest. The vertex, I'll put the vertex back in. Again, all important points are graphed. So that's basically how I use the conic sections grapher. Today I will post 2 videos. The second one is going to be the same thing, only I'm going to do it on one of the other calculators. Check us out, youtube.com, cmathrun, or featuretube.com, cmathrun, Twitter, @cmathrun. Thanks.